right, let's talk about devotion, specifically about devotion and comparison. More specifically about letting go of comparing your spiritual path to anybody else's spiritual path, because that's just crazy making. This was my personal trip for a long time, and it was extra trippy because I was always comparing my path to like the spiritual extremists, the radicalists, right? So I wasn't looking at what the householders were doing and the moms, but, you know, I would look at like these aesthetic Hindus offering up their entire existence in prayer and pilgrimage, and just drive myself bonkers with my level of dedication. It's like, I'd look at the sadhus. Anybody know about the sadhus? These guys who live off really the alms, the generosity of the community. Dreadlocked, body painted, loincloth, long nails, you know? And they do these extreme physical acts in order to transcend their bodies. They tie a cloth on the end of their penis and hang bricks off of it. Hardcore. And so I'd like criticize myself for wanting like a softer yoga mat. Question my whole pain tolerance. I would look into like Orthodox monks who kneel for so long on cliffs and outcroppings of rocks that they become crippled, and think, wow, I really need to give her, you know. Or then I look at my own community. I have my friend who gave up sugar for a year. She did not even have ketchup. How can you live a spiritual life without ketchup? And I would just feel guilty for every time I open the fridge, vegan, not vegan, all the things. If I wasn't chanting in my car, I felt like I wasn't making the most of my drive time, you know? So for a lot of us, we don't really give enough credibility to the spiritual practices we are already doing. We can identify, we can see that, oh, some of the things I'm doing are actually very ritualistic and meaningful. You know, a lot of us have regular habits that are bringing us closer to the soul, to the light. And we should declare those for what they are. They are spiritual rituals. It could just be that quiet moment that you give yourself before you head into a meeting, you know, that breath you take before you pivot. What you're really doing there is maybe communing with your higher guidance, you know. It could be that girl time you have in your living room with hummus and olives and laughs, like women who have been gathering in tents and temples for millennia. Could be working in the garden. You are serving Mother Gaia. It might be important to you what you call your practice, you know. Maybe you're not a quote meditator, but I'm going to try and compel you into meditation later on. But every morning, maybe you sit down and you read scriptures with your Earl Grey tea, or you're writing in your journal. That is a contemplative practice. You could call it that. It might inspire you to keep doing it. Maybe prayer is more your style. And call it a prayer practice, because it is. And then we keep in mind, as we walk our path, there's no competition. Nobody else, not even your spiritual teacher or director. No one can quantify the value of your practices for you. It's totally up to us, right? You might get more out of a one-time silent retreat than another practitioner gets from months, years of meditation. This might just be how you're built, wired, and blessed, right? One sincere prayer for one of us could be as effective as hours of prostrations from another monk, someone who needs to burn stuff off, right? You gotta remember, we call it spiritual practice. It's practice. It's about an ongoingness. It's not about permanence. It's not about perfection. There's a sweet little story about Krishnamurti and one of his students. Krishnamurti, another hot prophet that I really love. The student said to him, you know, teacher, I find it impossible to be aware all the time. And Krishnamurti said to him, well, don't be aware all the time. Just be aware in little bits. Little bits is a spiritual path. So even with steady devotion like real commitment to your growth, you know? Your practices are probably going to ebb and flow. It's like, some days you're going to be riding high. You're going to feel like, you are merging with Shiva himself. You might be fasting and you're feeling the pulse of the higher realms. And, on other days, you are just going to be doing what it takes to not feel like shit. So you got to be your kind of devotee, your kind of light worker. Worship what you love and love the way that you worship.